they'll just miss out on lots of good stuff. So I think now I've met everybody. My name's Rebecca Weitzel, for the sake of the video. I'm the wellness coordinator. But also, what you may not know about me, most of you probably do by now, is that I've been a personal trainer for the past 20 years as well. So there's some things I kind of have learned over the years about weight loss, not just from the research, because we know there's always new things coming out every day, but also just seeing firsthand what works, what doesn't work. And I've even evolved over the years about what I think about weight loss, what I think about exercise, and I try to keep an open mind so that I can adjust when we learn new things and not be so stuck in a rigid mindset that this is the only way to approach these things. So, as you know, there are lots of big ideas out there about how to lose weight. I mean, anywhere you turn, somebody's got advice, somebody's got a new big idea they're selling, some product they're peddling. So really, how do you sort it all out, and how do you know what to believe? It can be really confusing, can't it? Right now, what are the big fads? What are we hearing people doing?
Oh, no carbs.
No carbs is a big one, yeah. We have that in the biggest circle. No carbs. What else?
No wheat.
No wheat. The gluten-free
Yes.
craze. Yes, okay. Really, and you know, maybe 10 years ago it was no fat, right? So there's always some food that's the demon. And what happens is it's based on a little bit of truth that then just kind of takes on a life of its own and becomes some crazy thing. So let's just go through what I think are what I've identified as the top 5 weight loss myths. The first one that I'd like to just get out there right from the get-go is myth number 1. Fat always means you're unhealthy. So if you are overweight, by definition, you are an unhealthy person. Is that true?
No.
It's not true. In fact, there's lots of good research that's come out in the last probably decade to identify this group of people that are now called metabolically healthy obesity. So we hear about obesity and how much it costs our healthcare system and how much it costs us as a society. But is it really the extra weight that is the problem? Or could it be the behaviors that lead to people gaining weight? That's really what it is. So don't assume just because you see somebody at Walmart and they're 100 pounds overweight that they're necessarily an unhealthy person. Because you can be considered healthy, even if you're overweight, if you have these following characteristics. If your waist is 40 inches or less for a man, or 35 inches or less for a woman, okay? If you think about that, actually, and it kind of pertains to the next myth, but I've seen thin people, relatively thin people, have a really big waist. That's actually more of an indicator of unhealth than if you're just overweight. If you have normal blood pressure, normal cholesterol, and normal blood sugar, if you have a normal sensitivity to insulin, and if you have good overall physical fitness, you can go for a walk and it doesn't kill you, then you may actually be healthier than your thin friends. So I think that this is really important because it starts to change the way that we think about people who may be carrying a little extra weight. Now, this kind of goes into body weight and what's called the body mass index. Do you know what that is? Sadly, we use this number still a lot to just sort of get an idea of a person's relative health to their weight. So even with Simply Well, if you did the screening, they gave you a BMI and you got your number. If it was in normal range, then you probably didn't worry about it. But if it was in high range, then maybe you did. Well, that number in and of itself just really does not tell us much, because as you can see from the picture, we have 2 gentlemen here. They both weigh 250 pounds and they're both 6 feet tall. But look at the difference and they both have a BMI of 33.9, which would be considered on that chart as obese. But clearly one of the people is not obese. And I've seen this in real world experience a lot. My husband would be this guy here. He actually shows up as high on the BMI chart. Well, that's ridiculous because he's all muscle. So if that number's not in the normal range and it's on the higher side, don't get completely discouraged unless you have some of those other factors in play. More of your fat stored around your waist, your cholesterol's high, your blood sugar's off. Those are the indicators along with that number that maybe clue you in that maybe you've got some health concerns. But what I find really interesting is we can take a group of people, let's say take 4 adults in the U.S., and all of them are normal weight. One of those 4 actually is going to have some form of an unhealthy heart, like high blood pressure or high cholesterol. So just because a person looks like they're healthy doesn't necessarily mean that they are. And that's why it's really important to do things like our Hilltop health screening, because we're getting at some of those things that are on the inside that we can't see that reflects back to us the truth about our health, as opposed to just going by something like weight or BMI. Older adults with normal BMIs, but who have a high level of body fat, are actually at a greater risk for cardiovascular disease and death, pretty much than any other group. That's pretty fascinating to me. So I've seen this too. I've seen people come to me to train, and for example, I've had women in their 160 pounds who are in really great shape, have a lot of muscle density. Like when we do their body fat test and we see how many pounds they are of muscle, they may be like 120 pounds of solid muscle and the rest is all the other stuff. Whereas I've had people come in who are 138 pounds, they look pretty normal, and be 40% fat. So you can't always tell. All right? So I guess I already said that. Let's see. Moving on. So the thing that I want to stress here is that even if you don't lose any weight at all, and you start changing your behaviors, and you start moving a little more, and you start improving your nutrition a little bit more, there are all kinds of wonderful things that can be happening in terms of improving your health that may not reflect on the scale. So studies show even if you don't lose weight, you still can be decreasing the visceral fat, the bad kind of fat that's around your organs. And that's why some people who are thin can actually be skinny fat. You've heard that term? Because they've got fat that's inside, all over their organs. And that's actually the really dangerous kind of fat. So even if you're not seeing a difference on the scale, you're likely dropping those fat pounds. You can be lowering your cholesterol. I mean, it's fascinating, some of the studies that show even just a walk can drastically help you process the cholesterol in your body, even if you eat a high-fat meal. So exercise can do amazing things even if you don't lose weight. Lower your blood pressure, increase your insulin sensitivity, which is really important in diabetes prevention, increases your good cholesterol, and all of that, even if you don't see any change on the scale. And I think what happens, and we'll talk a lot more about this at the very end, is when we are focused on the scale, we miss all these other wonderful things that are happening when we start to make improvements to our health. And we sort of miss the big picture, right? Okay, so myth number 2. Weight loss equals fat loss. That it's the same thing. Sadly, no, it is not. So, I never think it's a success story when one of my clients loses 10 pounds and we take their body fat, and we do the numbers, and we find out that 5 of those pounds were fat and the other 5 pounds were muscle and water. So they lost 10 pounds and they want to celebrate that. To me, I want to cry, because every pound of muscle that you lose causes all kinds of problems. It decreases your fitness, decreases your strength, so you just can't do those things you want to do in life. Makes you weak and fatigued, decreases your immunity, and causes early aging. So weight loss, just weight loss, is not necessarily a happy thing if it's comprised of muscle, water, and fat. If you want to lose weight, it needs to be fat. So we need to start changing the words we use, right? Instead of weight loss, it's really fat loss. We want to get rid of excess fat that we don't need, right? Because we are no longer in the caveman days, and we don't need to have all these stores for famine. So we want to focus on that aspect of the scale. So If we just lose fat but we keep muscle or even add muscle to our bodies, we increase our fitness, increase our strength, we get more energy and endurance, we have lower risk of disease, and we delay our aging. So big difference, right? Can we all agree? You. All right, so how do we do that? Well, I'll tell you right now, first and foremost, and I'm skipping down to this one because this one to me is the most important. Going on really restrictive calorie diets is guaranteed to cause you to lose muscle. Because what our bodies do is they go, oh, okay, I'm starving, and you've heard that. If you restrict your calories, you starve. But what that actually means is your body wants to let go of whatever is on it that's requiring the most energy. And muscle requires more energy. Muscle is what gives us a good metabolism. So if we're starving, our bodies are so smart, and they will just start shedding muscle so that they can conserve. We don't want to restrict our calories by a whole bunch all at once. The best recommendation is to stick with only about 20% reduction at a time and then go from there. If you're very obese with a very high body fat, you can go a little bit higher than that, and studies show you won't lose muscle. But generally speaking, we want to just kind of not cause our bodies to go into starvation and shock mode. We want to just slowly reduce the calories until, like a scientist, we discover what is our magic number, what works for me without starting to have the adverse impact. Yes?
Well, and I've heard that you actually can have one, I don't know if it's a reward day or cheat day, but a higher calorie day that really keeps your body guessing and out of that starvation mode.
Sure. So there are some ideas, some research has shown that when you have a high calorie day, that you increase your leptin levels, which then tells your body, you're okay, you don't need to starve. But I would suggest, and my personal thoughts after reading a lot of the research, is that if you are just kind of cutting back a little bit every day, your body really won't even notice the difference. There's kind of what's been referred to as the mindless margin, where there's about 200 to 300 calories a day that we can either overconsume or underconsume without really noticing. Our bodies won't alert us to the fact that we're hungry or that we've overeaten. So if you stay within about that range, and if you ever want me to help you do the math to actually see what is 20% fewer calories than what I should be eating now, then I've tried it with different numbers, and it always comes out to be around 350 or so calories. So if we're talking about a cut that small, you're never going to be telling your body that you're starving. So you won't even have to worry about that day. And in fact, if you are sticking to this, having a really high calorie day probably will defeat the purpose. Although we can all have a high calorie day once in a while, right? I have mine. I like to bake on Sundays. So let's go through the other two. Do strength training. If you are ever part of a weight loss support group that tells you not to exercise and don't do strength training, they are selling you a bunch of crap. And that is because what they want to see is they want you to be able to see the scale, the number on the scale, drop faster. So they know if you connect their product or their program with quicker drops on the scale, that you're more likely to stick with it with their program. The problem with that is what we saw on that other slide. Weight loss just in and of itself is not necessarily a good thing. We want fat loss. So in order to maintain muscle, we can burn calories, which eventually draws from our fat stores, and maintain or even gain muscle if you're just starting out with weight training. And that's how we change our bodies. That's how we change our composition. So, if you're like 2 parts muscle, 1 part fat, you can start to change that composition if you add muscle. The beauty of doing that is that muscle increases your metabolism. So now, while you're sitting here listening to me, the people that have the most muscle in their bodies are burning a lot more calories than the people who have the least amount of muscle in their bodies. So muscle is good. I don't care at all what I weigh. I don't even care. I hardly ever weigh myself. Because all I care about is that I can do my push-ups and do my sit-ups and I want to be able to hike. I want to be able to do the things I want to do. So I kind of keep track of my fitness by just giving myself some fitness goals. And we'll talk more about that. But that's the focus. That's what's important. All right, the other thing that you can do is to swap out your long cardio workouts for shorter, high-intensity cardio workouts. So you're going to add your strength training at least a couple times a week, right? And then on the other days, you're going to do shorter, more intense cardio. And the research shows that if you work out in these short, hard bursts, you're more likely to maintain your muscle than metabolize your muscle. So when we do these really long, in fact, my husband, who I told you is all muscle, will hike a 14er, and he will lose 5 pounds almost always by the time we're done, because we're hiking sometimes for 9 hours. So once in a while, that's fun and that's great, but then he has to go back. It doesn't happen to me, but but we don't want to do that to our bodies constantly. It can also just lead to burnout. If you think you have to exercise for 90 minutes a day just to maintain or lose weight, you're going to burn out eventually. So Google high intensity or interval workouts. There's all kinds of things you can do in 20 or 30 minutes. Boom, you're done. But the key is you have to work really hard. Okay, so you can't just take the normal workout you've been doing and shorten it. You have to compact what you're doing into that amount of time, do the same amount of hard work, but in a shorter period of time. So all kinds of fun ways you can do that. This morning I did Tabatas for my cardio workout. Do you know what that is? That's going as hard as you can for 20 seconds, and then rest for 10. Hard as you can, and I mean hard, like it's hard, like you can't even go longer than 20 seconds. And you do that 8 times, and that's 4 minutes. I do it 3 times interspersed with some pull-ups. But if you even just add that one time to your exercise routine, there's some really awesome research about what that will do for your overall physical fitness. It's amazing. Okay,
so running in place or what?
What's that? You can do all kinds of things. I have like a Cybex machine. It's an arc trainer, and you could do it with a cycle. You could do it sprinting and then walking. You could do it. There's anything you can do as long as you do it really hard for 20 seconds and then take a break for 10, and then repeat that cycle 8 times for 4 minutes. Now, the beauty of intervals or high intensity is it's all relative to you. So what my high intensity is may not look like Valerie's high intensity. It may be a totally different thing. So it's all about perceived exertion. How hard am I working? So on a scale of 1 to 10, you want to aim for those hard moments, those 20 seconds if you're doing a Tabata, to be up there, like an 8, 9, pushing your maximum, okay? So start out slow with that if you've never done interval training or Tabatas. There are lots of great resources you can
And
find.
did you say like 15 minutes of cardio? Is that good for the day, or?
It depends. I mean, you could really, if you even just did the 4 minutes, that's better than doing probably a 30-minute slow go in terms of overall fitness. But you can work up to, hard sessions that last 20 to 30 minutes at the most. Yeah. And most of the bodybuilders that you'll talk to, that's what they do. They don't do long. They want to keep every bit of muscle they have. So they only do cardio with really high intensity for 20, 30 minutes at the most. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. Keep a mental note of questions too at the end.
And how long for strength training? How, like half hour, is that, or?
The time is just so relative too. I mean, it just really depends on how you're going to do it. I would say just make sure you hit all the major muscles in your body at least a couple of times a week. I like to train my clients in ways where they're maybe working one muscle group, maybe 2 at a time. So maybe they're doing a squat and a bicep curl at the same time, or they're doing the bicep curls, letting their biceps rest, doing some squats, then going back to the bicep curls. That's a really efficient way to get it done quickly. It's just kind of going back and forth. So just kind of go through your muscles in your body and make sure you hit them a couple times a week. But really, for your average person, that shouldn't take more than 20 or 30 minutes too. My whole workout this morning with the Tabatas and my pull-ups was 40 minutes. Okay. All right, so we're moving on to myth number 3. How am I doing on All right, weight loss is all about willpower. Is that true? We kind of think it's true. Even if you're not going to admit to me right now, we kind of think it's true, like deep down. Because the reason I know that is because studies show that the number one reason we give for why we're not losing weight is lack of willpower. So whether we're judging each other, I don't know, but we're definitely judging ourselves and telling ourselves, I just don't have any willpower. That's the problem. When we think of willpower, what are the words that come to mind? Did I get pretty much captured the list? Determination, drive, resolve, self-discipline, self-control. And those are all good things, right? But the problem is when we're using those terms, when we talk about weight loss, is what it does to stigmatize people. Because by definition, then we're saying if somebody is overweight, they don't have determination, they don't have drive, they don't have resolve, they don't have self-discipline, no self-control. Again, whether we're saying that to ourselves or we're thinking about it each other, there's a lot of stigma that comes with that notion that all it requires is willpower. And that's not even true. The American Psychological Association says willpower is the ability to resist short-term temptations, see how I had put that in red, in order to meet long-term goals. So the operative word is short-term. Willpower works in the short term. It gets you up that last little bit to the top of the mountain. It helps you resist that cookie that your coworker brought into the break room. But we have limited amounts of willpower. And the amount that you have in your willpower bucket does depend on how much you exercise that. Willpower is sort of like a muscle, where the more you exercise it, the bigger it'll get. But even the person with the most willpower that you could possibly have, it's a finite resource. It doesn't last forever. And so when we're using up that resource by, eating a salad instead of pizza at lunch, yay! Turning down that cookie or waking up early to exercise, we're pulling out of that bucket. So we've got full bucket, don't we, when we start the beginning of a new diet. Got a full bucket when we start a new exercise plan. We're just raring to go. We can't even see how we will not do it because we're so excited. And our bucket is so full. And, on that first day after you meet with maybe a coach or a trainer, you're pumped up, they've got you motivated, they got you excited. And then little by little, we use up our willpower. And now we're depleted. And this can happen at the end of the day, by the end of the week, by the end of the month. Again, depending on how much you had to start out with in the first place. So, what do we do then? If it's not about willpower, what do we do? Well, we rely less on willpower. So if we can set up our lives to where we don't have to pull from that willpower bucket quite as much, then we're going to have plenty to go around for when we need it. Because the truth is, sometimes you just need it. Sometimes it's nothing but willpower that gets you out of bed and gets you on your morning walk. But if you were having to use that every morning because you have to drive 10 miles to go to the park that you walk at, and then that took willpower, and then you had to take willpower to get around the park, and then willpower to get yourself back to work, those types of things draw from your willpower. But if we engineer our environment for success, we don't have to draw so much out of that bucket. So we can do that by doing things like cleaning out your kitchen, your office drawer. Get rid of the stuff that tempts you so that you don't have to make those choices every single time you open your drawer, every single time you open the fridge. Because that is what's happening. I guarantee you, if I have chips in the house, I will eat them. I will. And I know all the information, but I will eat them if they're in the house. So I don't have enough willpower in my bucket. But what I can do is not buy them. I can tell myself I can have chips, but it has to be when I go out. And then I hardly ever have them, right? And then making exercise or being able to move every day as convenient as possible. So if your treadmill is down in the basement and it's dark and dank and there's nothing to watch or listen to in there and you have to, go all the way downstairs, you're less likely to do it. So make it convenient so that you don't have to draw from your willpower bucket to do it. It'll take a little less to pull from. Adjusting your routine. So when possible, just avoid the places, and yes, even people, that don't support your new lifestyle. If if you're an alcoholic, of course you're not going to keep going to a bar when you're trying to stop drinking. So think of the places and even the people. I know you can't get rid of your spouse or your significant other, and oftentimes they are the one doing the sabotaging, huh?
You really can though.
I mean, if it's come to that, talk to your therapist about it first, but you really do. You need to set yourself up for success. If you don't go to those places that tempt you, you're not going to have to draw from your willpower bucket. Replace one behavior at a time. So if we make 10 changes all at once, our bucket is going to be empty the first day. But if we just pick one thing we're going to do that helps improve our health a little bit better, master that first, and then move on to the next thing, what we're then doing is replacing those behaviors and turning them into habits. And habits don't require near as much willpower, do they? So, if I just have a habit that I wake up when my alarm goes off and I go downstairs and I get my workout done, initially that may be hard and I have to draw some of my willpower out, but eventually that just becomes more of a habit and I just do it because that's what I do and I move on to the next thing. Does that make sense? All right. And then it's always beneficial to use a food or exercise journal, especially at the beginning, just to become more aware. More aware of those times that you could maybe adjust your environment or your routine to set yourself up more for success. And then the third one, which I really like, is connecting with a powerful why. So for each new behavior that you're picking here, make sure you know why you're doing it. If it's just to lose weight, I guarantee you that is not going to last for very long. But if you have something else that's behind it that you're emotionally connected to, then when you're not feeling like waking up, you can think about it. So, for example, I used my workout this morning as an example, but I really did not want to wake up this morning. I was really tired. And so I was thinking, I can just skip this one. But then I remembered, no, you're hiking a 14er on Saturday. You don't want to be miserable on that hike, so you need to keep your body in move mode. And as soon as I thought of that, as soon as I remembered my why, I found a little more willpower in my bucket, and I got up and I did it this morning. So if you have a good reason, you're more likely to do it, and you're more likely to find that little bit of willpower that might be left if you're otherwise depleted. All right, myth number 4. If you do eat, take blank, you will lose weight. Okay, you can just picture all the advertisements out in front of you right now, right? There's always somebody wanting to give you their diet advice or their exercise gimmicks or sell you a supplement as the way to lose weight, right? And we talked about some of these already. The problem with it is that they generally don't work. There are no shortcuts. So I want to tell you to be wary of anything that, number 1, promises quick results. If it worked, we'd all be doing it, and there'd be nobody who was suffering from obesity. Right? If there really was one thing that worked, we'd all do it. We'd all know about it. The doctors would all know about it. If it eliminates an entire food group, be warned. Now, if you have celiac disease, you truly should not be eating gluten. If you have gluten sensitivity as diagnosed by a blood test that your doctor did, you shouldn't be eating gluten. But most things, for most of us, if we eliminate an entire food group, we're doing that and thinking it's working because temporarily what we're doing is we've eliminated stuff we used to eat. But unfortunately what happens is little by little, we replace those missing calories with other things. So take, for example, the gluten-free craze. So it used to be, at the beginning of this whole craze, that there really wasn't a lot you could do except go grind your own flours or go to specialty stores to grind different flours to make whatever it is you wanted to make. You had to go to different whole grains. You couldn't eat muffins and cakes and cookies because everything that was on the store shelves was full of gluten goodness. But what happens is, the marketing companies and the food companies, they catch on and they go, okay, we're doing the gluten-free thing now. So they make cakes and cookies and all kinds of goodies, gluten-free, and now you're eating all those same things that you had eliminated that caused the original weight loss to begin with. So be aware of anything that eliminates an entire food group, whether it's carbs, fat, gluten, whatever it is. Anything that requires you to spend a lot of money. There's a couple of programs in town now that cost thousands of dollars to do. Really, the price of good health shouldn't cost you more than the cost of some healthy food and a decent pair of shoes. That's all it takes. But we don't want to believe that because we want to think it's more complicated than that. It's not. We just have to eat a little better and move a little more, and nothing is more effective than that. And that's what's tried and true. That's what we know over the decades and decades and decades that remains consistent. One decade we'll think that fat is the demon. The next decade it's carbs. The next decade it's gluten. But we get fatter and fatter and fatter and less fit and less healthy. So it's not any one food group to eliminate. It's not any special diet. It's not any special exercise. It's eating better and doing something that you enjoy doing. I mean, really, I can even tell you to do Tabatas, but if you hate it, don't do it, because then you're not going to stick with it. Find things that you enjoy doing and you'll actually stick with it. All right, myth number 5. This, to me, is the most important one we're going to talk about. If you're overweight, well, obviously, your goal should be to lose weight, right? Okay, I think it's time we rethink this. And I've been trying to get my clients in the last couple of years to start to change their thinking. This used to be what I thought, but now anytime I watch like The Biggest Loser or any of those weight loss shows, I just get pissed because I hate how it's all about the weight. In fact, the last extreme weight loss show, which I actually like because they take a whole year to do it, but the guy was doing a lot of weight training. But he was still sort of being made to feel bad because his weight wasn't dropping at the rate that they set out for him to drop. But meanwhile, he was losing tons of fat and actually adding muscle. So the weight was sort of irrelevant. So I think it's time we start thinking about things differently. The problem with the weight loss as being the focus is we define our success or worthiness by the number on the scale. I think this is the ultimate form of objectifying ourselves. We don't like to be objectified. Like women, we talk about, I am not just a pair of boobs, right? We don't like that. But then what do we do to ourselves? We do that. We basically reduce ourselves to how much ever that scale says we weigh. And it means nothing. You are worthy. You are successful right now. Right now, sitting here, however much you weigh, you are worthy and you are a good person. And then we think, do you all have a magic number? Maybe what you weighed in high school, maybe, okay. And we think, if I just weighed that, I'd be happy. It's a lie. It's a lie we tell ourselves. We should be happy right now. And if we're happy right now, we're naturally going to do the things that makes us healthy. The number on the scale has nothing to do with living a beautiful life. Nothing. Isn't that kind of freeing to think, you know what? I don't care about that number. It's stupid. Right now, can we just decide whatever number you have in your head that's your ideal weight, we're going to throw it away, we're going to say it's stupid, and we're going to start living our life right now. Weighing less doesn't mean you'll feel any better inside. Just look at the extreme examples of our, actors and musicians, our famous people who all are fit and thin, and we see lots of times where we see they're in drug rehab, or they're in AA, or they've committed suicide, or a number of things. It does not mean that they're healthy inside. And then I think when we focus on weight loss, we're actually not really respecting our bodies for what they can do. And I know that's kind of a different way to think about it, but I really believe this, that when we've then reduced ourselves to whatever it is we weigh, we aren't then thinking about what we can do. Focusing on weight prevents us from appreciating us and ourselves, and how much our body weighs means nothing compared to what your body can potentially do. Let's see. Have you guys heard of the blue zones? So there's a book that kind of compiles all the research, but there's a company that identified 7 areas of the world that have the most people who live to be 100 or more, and who, based on blood tests and just different things, tend to be really, really healthy and score really high on the happiness chart. And what they've identified is that in those zones, they don't focus on weight loss. So we're talking about some, a couple of them are, there's one place in Okinawa, there's one place, the Seventh-day Adventist in California, and there's 5 others. And so they take this concept of what they found with these blue zones, and they've now been applying it to different places, like in different cities, and trying to get people to embrace these concepts and not focus on weight, but to focus on connecting more with each other, on changing their environment to just make basic walking easier. What did I say about shoes? All you need is a good pair of shoes, because if we just walk more, we're going to be a lot more healthy. And making fruits and vegetables more available and just more socially common. The result is they have increased happiness, and voila, they lose weight. And that's just a byproduct. It's not the goal in and of itself. It's just a happy coincidence that all these things that lead to good health and happiness also lead to weight loss.
I have a question. You're not allowed to eat green vegetables.
Well,
That becomes a real problem.
it does. And that would be something that I would recommend you talk to a dietitian about, specifically for your needs. So yeah, I know a lot of us have kind of things that we can't eat and allergies and different things. And so it's really important that we work with our doctor and a nutritionist or a dietitian for those things. All right, so here are some ideas for goals other than weight loss. You can have some short-term goals. I'm going to walk 20 minutes for 5 days. For 30, or for 5 days a week for 30 days. So that's your goal. Your goal is not, I'm going to lose 10 pounds in 30 days. My goal is to walk 20 minutes 5 days a week for 30 days. Might lose 10 pounds, maybe, but who cares? We don't care about that number right now. These are all different ideas that you can do. Longer term goals, maybe you're going to set it by spring, you're going to hike Mount Garfield. Who wants to set that goal with me? I'll hike with you. So different things that you can do, and I'm going to wrap up here really quick because this is the most important thing I want you to walk away. Aside from all those 5 myths, there's one truth. And if you have a chance to read this article from the Huffington Post, Your Body is Not Your Masterpiece, do so, because your body is your paintbrush. Your body is just a tool that you use to bring out the beautiful stuff that's inside. Your life is what's your work of art, and you are the masterpiece. Your body helps you get there, but we spend so much time on thinking that our body is the project, that we need to lose our bellies, and we need to lose the back fat, and we need to, get strong biceps. And we forget that our body isn't the focus. Our body is just one of the tools to sort of help us paint this beautiful life, and that you have a beautiful life. You can be having a beautiful life right now. Don't wait until the scale tells you it's okay. I don't know why it makes me emotional. But you are all worthy right now, and it does not matter what the scale says. You are worthy of having this beautiful life, and you are all masterpieces right now. Use your body to do that. Use your body to reach out to others. And you will find that all those other things that you're frustrated with will just magically sort of fall away and become, and go to the places where they're supposed to in your priorities and in your focus in your life. Okay, so thank you. Any questions?
We could go back
Yeah.
one before the last there.
Okay. I know I kind of rushed through that
That's
one.
all right.
Yeah, just ideas, but just start thinking more in terms of, again, what your body can do. So make your goals about that more than what you want it to weigh. That's really the biggest thing. And start appreciating it. I mean, I really do stop to think when I'm picking up my groceries from my car and taking them to the house. I stop and I pause for a moment and say, I'm so glad I'm strong enough I can bring these groceries into the house without asking for help. Try to find those moments in life where you just are really appreciative of what your body can do. Even if your body has limitations, it can still do stuff and it's amazing. Thank your eyes for what they can see. You know, thank your arms for what they can lift, and they can hug, and they can love. I mean, we have these incredible bodies, and let's just start focusing on those types of things. And our bodies are capable of more than they can do now. And that's where the goals can come in, is to help us move toward what our potential is in terms of what they can do. Any other questions? Forward?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You're a paintbrush. Let me introduce Lori really quick. For the next few minutes, we just wanted to share with you a program that we're introducing at Hilltop. It's called the Peak Program, and it's a support group. And we called it a weight management group in the email because I know that some of this you're not really going to connect with, but we want to get you there, and then we're going to start telling you that really it's not about your weight. It's about a lot of other things. But it's a program to support people who are struggling with these concepts and struggling with how they're approaching their body. So Lori Kitzman is going to be our leader of the group. And so I want to make sure that you meet Lori. Thanks.
Hi. So the program is called PEAK, and it stands for Promoting Eating and Activity Knowledge. And it's going to be a program that we want to run ongoing or more than one time a year. It's 10 weeks, and it's a support group format. And Marlis and myself and Rebecca and another lady named Amanda will be facilitating the group weekly. And our first group is going to start, we're going to meet at this time frame, 11:30 to 12:30, weekly, starting next week. It ends right before Thanksgiving, we decide. And the first group, I'm glad and sad to say, is full. If any of you are interested after hearing the talk today in joining the next group, Rebecca's got a sign-up sheet over there to put your name down for interest. But the first group is going to start next Wednesday at this time, and it will be at the Health Access Building, which is over by the old Blue Democrat, that's over by St. Mary's. Forgot the name of the road.
602 Gold.
There
Yeah,
you go.
Gold. Yeah.
There you go, thank you. So that's about that, and I just wanted to show you today that we have, there is 10 sessions, there's 10 weeks, and there's a topic for each of the sessions. A couple of the sessions are personal coaching sessions where you'll meet with Marlis, Rebecca, Amanda, or I. We're going to split you up, and we will talk about your specific weight loss goals, your health goals, and that kind of thing. Marlis is going to be there with her scal to weigh us, not so that we focus on that, but so that we know that we're making some changes that are helping us be healthy.
And we mostly just need that number so we can do your body fat. That will help us assess that, yeah.
So depending on the week and the topic of that week, we have guest speakers arranged to come in. It's certainly not going to be me standing up there talking. It's going to be more of a support group and discussing the topic of the day. We'll get materials each week, like you'll get a packet when you come, session 1, session 2, all the way through. The topics are getting started, portion sizes and emotional eating, physical activity, carbs and proteins, fats and labels, food labels, cooking, shopping and recipe modification, dining out, drinks, hydration, vitamins and minerals. Those are some of the topics, and we have great handouts and great materials that we'll be passing out in addition to the syllabus for that week. Hopefully we'll all be able to help each other and support each other. We all know I'm struggling. Those of you who have seen me over the last 31 years know that sometimes I'm skinny, sometimes I'm fat, sometimes I'm skinny, sometimes I'm fat. It's just up and down. Pictures of me over the years are that way. So you know that I pretty much know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the struggles and the emotional eating, and I've done everything to lose weight. I've done it. So, and successfully lost weight, but then gained it back. So this time we're going to avoid that. So my helping you all is going to help me too.
How many folks in each session?
10.
Okay.
And like I said, we are full for the first one. And we're gonna be cozy in that.
I'm thinking about the conference room.
I know.
I'm all like, I'm setting up the conference room for those meetings, okay, 10 people plus the 4 of you. Okay, thank you.
Don't be cozy.
She needs a cookie, she's stressed.
Oh, no, that doesn't
No,
work.
it's all right, yeah, I'll walk it off.
I heard a joke one time at one of my Weight Watchers meetings where there was a healthy family, a little boy being raised by a mother who was really in tune to eating healthy and eating well and not using food for rewards. And the little boy was being babysat that day by somebody else, a neighbor, grandmother, somebody, and he fell down and he skinned his knee. And the first thing this babysitter person did was say, "Here, have a cookie, you'll feel better." And he got hold of that cookie and he stuck it on his knee. It isn't working. Well, that's right, because I'm an emotional eater. Most of us that are this overweight are. And our society kind of has promoted that throughout the years. What do we do when we celebrate? We go out and eat. What do we do if somebody dies in our family or we're really sad? Well, we bring them all food,
Well,
if we're
food
gonna-
equals comfort.
Yeah, if we're gonna celebrate at work, what do? We have a potluck. Everybody makes their best, most tasty dish. Nobody brings in a bowl of lettuce. Not in my department anyway, we can cook, So it's our culture. We have to find ways to increase our activity. And I don't like to sweat, I'll tell you guys that. Sweating is not one of my things. So I have to do that right along with you guys.
So it's not gonna be the same 10 people, or it doesn't have to be the same 10 people at each session?
Well,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Oh, okay, so that's what I thought, it seemed like, and so
It's
you've already gotten your 10 people and
Yeah.
you'll have to wait till after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Okay.
But you'll be lucky because we'll be working out all the bugs with them,
Yeah.
so it'll be perfect. But
Amanda may have sent me out of the water.
This is strictly for the employees only?
It is for employees right now, isn't it? When you
Yes.
say employees? Yeah.
Just one.
Employees, and there's some benefits to your wellness points if you participate. Do you need to?
yeah, so you'll get, if you complete the first coaching session and the last coaching session, as well as attend at least 6 of the 8, support group sessions, then you'll get 1,000 points. Hilltop has determined too that it's paid time. So if you are an hourly employee, you need to make sure that you're coordinating with that, getting with your supervisor, and making sure you're getting that approval. We're treating you like an adult, like you can do that on your own, but make sure, because this can't take you on overtime, so we want to be sure that you're coordinating that with your supervisor. And I just really appreciate Lori for being vulnerable and being willing to kind of share her struggles. I think that's how we're going to be really successful, not just in this group, but if you have other people in your lives to go to for support. I think being able to just be really honest and share our struggles and share our stories is the way that we're going to really get ourselves out of the issues that we're sort of stuck in. So thank you.
It does help to have somebody who's a little bit overweight or a lot overweight and been there. I know myself when I was younger and I'd go to Weight Watchers and the leader would be standing up there and she's got this perfect shape and she'd be telling me all this stuff and I'd be going, yeah, right, like how the heck do you know? Well, then you learn, well, she didn't used to, she wasn't always like that, she did learn, she did lose the weight, and so it's more credible, I think, that, if you have somebody that's actually walked the walk, succeeded and failed, and succeeded again and failed again. Any other questions or comments?
It's amazing how